The sound of knuckles rapping against wood has never been the same for me since that morning. It was a Tuesday, ordinary in every conceivable way until it wasn't. The sky hung gray and indifferent over our suburban street, the kind of weather that makes everything feel muted, as if the world itself is holding its breath. I was standing in my kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips, when I saw the patrol cars pull up, 2 of them, their presence stark against the manicured lawns and pristine driveways that defined our neighborhood. They parked directly in front of number 42, my neighbor's house. My hand trembled slightly, and I set the mug down on the counter with more force than I intended. The ceramic made a sharp sound that seemed to echo in the sudden silence of my kitchen. Through the window, I watched as 4 officers emerged from their vehicles, their movements deliberate and coordinated. They weren't rushing, but there was an unmistakable purposefulness to their stride as they approached the front door. I already knew why they were there. The weight of that knowledge had been pressing down on me for weeks, growing heavier with each passing day. It had started as a suspicion, a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. Then came the observations that small inconsistencies that most people would dismiss, but that I couldn't ignore. The late-night visitors who came and went with mechanical regularity. The packages that arrived at odd hours, always handled with unusual care. The way my neighbor, Daniel Morrison, had changed over the past 6 months, becoming withdrawn and jumpy, his eyes carrying the haunted look of someone living with a terrible secret. I had tried to convince myself that I was imagining things, that my tendency toward anxiety was painting shadows where none existed. But the evidence had accumulated like sediment, layer upon layer, until the truth became impossible to deny. And with that truth came a moral dilemma that had torn at me every single day. What was my responsibility when I suspected something terrible was happening next door? Our neighborhood prided itself on being quiet, safe, the kind of place where people knew each other's names and waved from their yards while mowing the lawn. We had block parties in the summer and caroling in December. We were a community, or at least we told ourselves we were. But how well do we really know the people who live beside us? How much of what we see is real, and how much is carefully constructed facade? Daniel had moved in 3 years ago, a quiet man in his early 40s who worked from home and kept to himself. In the beginning, he'd been friendly enough, offering a smile and small talk when we crossed paths at the mailbox. He had no family that I ever saw, no regular visitors, no apparent vices or eccentricities. He was, by all accounts, unremarkable. The perfect neighbor, really. The kind you barely notice. But 6 months ago, something had shifted. The change had been subtle at first, like a photograph slowly developing in a darkroom, revealing details that had always been there but invisible until the light hit them just right. His car started appearing and disappearing at strange hours. The curtains that had always been open began staying closed. And then there were the sounds, muffled thuds, and what might have been voices raised in distress, though I could never be quite sure. I had wrestled with what to do. Call the police based on a feeling, risk being wrong and destroying an innocent man's life, or stay silent and potentially allow something horrific to continue. The ethical calculus had kept me awake at night, staring at the ceiling while my conscience waged war with my fear of confrontation, my desire to mind my own business, my fundamental uncertainty about what I actually knew versus what I suspected. In the end, I had made a choice. And now, watching those officers knock on Daniel's door with the authority of the law behind them, I felt the full weight of that decision settle onto my shoulders. Whatever happened next, I would have to live with the consequences. The door opened, and Daniel appeared in the frame, his face going pale as the officers identified themselves. This is the story of what I knew, how I came to know it, and what happened when the truth finally came to light. The first time I noticed something was wrong, it was because of a sound. Not a dramatic crash or a scream, but something far more subtle. Silence. Daniel Morrison had always been a creature of habit, and one of those habits was playing classical music every evening around 7. Vivaldi mostly, or sometimes Bach. The notes would drift through our shared wall, gentle and unobtrusive, a pleasant backdrop to my own evening routine. But one night in early March, the music didn't come. Instead, there was only quiet, the kind of heavy silence that feels deliberate. I wouldn't have thought much of it if it had been just one night, but the silence stretched into a week, then two. When I finally saw Daniel again, collecting his mail on a Saturday morning, he looked different, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. His hand shook slightly as he sorted through the envelopes, and when I called out a greeting, he flinched before turning to face me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual despite the concern tightening in my chest. "Fine, just fine," he replied too quickly, clutching his mail to his chest like a shield. "Busy with work, you know how it is." But I didn't know because Daniel had always seemed relaxed about his work, whatever it was he did on that computer of his all day. This version of my neighbor was someone else entirely, someone anxious and guarded, always glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something terrible to appear. The visitors started coming 2 weeks after the music stopped. The first one arrived at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, pulling up in a dark sedan with tinted windows. I only noticed because I'd been up late finishing a project for work, and the sound of a car engine in our usually quiet street drew my attention to the window. A man emerged, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a jacket despite the mild spring weather. He approached Daniel's door with the confidence of someone who had been there before, and it opened immediately, as if Daniel had been waiting. They stood in the doorway for a moment, silhouetted against the light from inside, before the visitor stepped in and the door closed behind him. He stayed for exactly 45 minutes. I know because I couldn't help watching the clock, and when he left, Daniel stood in the doorway watching until the car disappeared around the corner. After that, the visitors became regular. Different cars, different people, but always the same pattern. Late at night, brief stays, furtive departures. None of them looked like friends dropping by for a chat. They all had the same purposeful air, the same businesslike demeanor. And Daniel, whenever I caught glimpses of him during these visits, always looked tense, his body language screaming discomfort, even as he let these strangers into his home. I began keeping a log, though I'm not sure why at first. Maybe some part of me knew I was witnessing something that mattered, something that would eventually need to be documented. The packages arrived on Thursdays like clockwork. Large cardboard boxes, always handled by the same delivery driver who worked for a private courier service I didn't recognize. What struck me as odd was how Daniel reacted to these deliveries. He would open his door before the driver could even knock, as if he'd been watching for the truck's arrival. He'd sign for the package and bring it inside with remarkable speed, sometimes before the delivery truck had even pulled away from the curb. Normal packages don't require that level of urgency. Normal deliveries don't make people's faces go tight with stress or cause their eyes to dart up and down the street as if checking for witnesses. I started paying attention to the boxes themselves when I could. They were plain, unmarked except for shipping labels, and they came from different cities each time. Portland, Seattle, Denver, Phoenix. No return addresses that I could see, just tracking numbers. One Thursday, I deliberately positioned myself outside, pruning the bushes near my mailbox when the delivery was scheduled. The driver pulled up, and Daniel emerged immediately as always. But this time, something was different. The box slipped in Daniel's grip, tilting at a sharp angle, and I heard something shift inside. Something heavy. Daniel's face went white, and he clutched the box more tightly, correcting its position with obvious panic. Whatever was inside, it wasn't something that should be jostled or dropped. It was 3 in the morning when the sound woke me. At first, I thought I'd been dreaming, but as I lay there in the darkness, I heard it again. A sound that was unmistakably human and undeniably distressed. Crying, muffled and distant, coming from the direction of Daniel's house. My heart began to pound as I slipped out of bed and moved to the window that faced his property. The lights were on in his basement. I could see the faint glow through the small ground-level windows that were usually dark. Shadows moved behind the frosted glass, and the crying continued, rising and falling in waves. I stood there for nearly 20 minutes, frozen between the impulse to call the police and the fear that I might be overreacting. What if someone was just watching a sad movie? What if Daniel himself was crying for some personal reason? But the sound didn't stop, and something about it felt wrong. It wasn't the crying of someone watching a film or grieving privately. It had a desperate quality, a rawness that made my skin crawl. I reached for my phone, my finger hovering over the emergency call button, but then the crying stopped abruptly. The basement light went out. Everything returned to silence as if nothing had happened at all. I didn't sleep for the rest of that night, sitting by the window and watching Daniel's dark house, waiting for any sign of what had caused those sounds. I decided I needed to talk to Daniel directly, It was a Saturday afternoon and I'd rehearsed what I would say, how I would express my concerns without sounding accusatory. I would be a good neighbor, checking in, offering support. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation for everything I'd observed and I would feel foolish but relieved. I walked across the lawn and knocked on his door. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time. I could hear movement inside, the creak of floorboards, but no one came to the door. "Daniel?" I called out. "It's me, from next door. I just wanted to check if everything's all right." More silence. Then finally his voice came through the door, muffled and strained. "I'm fine, just busy, can't talk right now." "I've been worried," I persisted. "If you need help with anything." "I don't need help." The words came out sharp, almost angry. "Please, just leave me alone." I stood there, stung by the hostility in his voice. The Daniel I'd known wouldn't have spoken to anyone that way. Through the narrow window beside the door, I caught a glimpse of his face, and what I saw chilled me. Fear. Pure, undiluted fear. Not of me, but of something else. Something that made answering his door a risk he couldn't take. I backed away slowly, and as I did, I saw the curtain in the front window twitch. Someone else was in there with him watching. I turned to the internet, searching for any information about Daniel Morrison I could find. What I discovered was both illuminating and deeply unsettling. His social media presence was minimal, just a Facebook page that hadn't been updated in over 2 years. The last post was a photo of him at some kind of tech conference smiling beside a banner for a company called Nexus Data Solutions. I searched for the company. It existed, or at least it had, but the website was defunct, showing only an error message. Further digging through business registries revealed that Nexus Data Solutions had been dissolved 18 months ago, following some kind of federal investigation. The details were sparse, buried in legal jargon and sealed court documents, but the words fraud investigation appeared more than once. Daniel's LinkedIn profile told a similar story. He'd worked for Nexus as a senior software engineer, specializing in encryption and data security. Then, nothing. A gap of nearly 2 years with no employment listed. I found a few forum posts from tech workers discussing Nexus's collapse, speculation about what had really happened, hints at something bigger than simple financial fraud. One comment stood out. "Some of us knew what was really going on in that basement server room. We just didn't say anything because we needed the jobs." Everything came to a head on a rainy Tuesday evening. I was taking out the trash when I saw someone running from Daniel's house. Not walking quickly, but actually running, stumbling down the front steps and across the lawn. A young woman, maybe in her 20s, barefoot and wearing clothes that looked slept in. Her face was streaked with tears and what might have been dirt or bruises. It was hard to tell in the fading light. She ran past me without seeming to see me, and I called out to her, but she didn't stop. She reached the end of the block and disappeared around the corner, running as if her life depended on it. My heart was hammering as I looked back at Daniel's house. The front door was open and Daniel stood in the doorway staring after the fleeing woman with an expression of absolute despair. Our eyes met across the yards, and in that moment, something passed between us. A recognition. He knew that I knew. Whatever had been happening, whatever secret he'd been keeping, the illusion of normalcy was shattered. I expected him to say something, to explain or threaten or plead, but he just stood there, and then slowly, deliberately, he closed the door. I went inside and picked up my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I couldn't ignore this anymore. I couldn't tell myself it was none of my business, or that I might be misunderstanding the situation. That woman had been terrified, and she had been in Daniel's house. Dialing 911 felt like crossing a threshold I could never step back across. The operator answered on the second ring, and I found myself stumbling over my words, trying to explain what I'd seen without sounding hysterical or uncertain. I told them about the woman running from my neighbor's house, about the suspicious activity I'd observed over the past months, about the sounds I'd heard in the middle of the night. "And you believe someone is in immediate danger?" the operator asked, her voice calm and professional. Was someone in immediate danger? The woman had gotten away, but was there someone else? "I don't know," I admitted, "but something is very wrong at that house, I'm certain of it." The operator took my information and told me officers would be dispatched to investigate. She asked me to stay on the line, but I couldn't. I hung up and moved to the window, watching Daniel's house in the growing darkness. Lights were on inside now, and I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. What was he doing in there? Destroying evidence? Trying to escape? Or was there someone else in that house who needed help? 20 minutes felt like hours. I paced my living room, second-guessing everything. What if I was wrong? What if there was an innocent explanation and I just destroyed an innocent man's life? But then I remembered the woman's face, the terror in her eyes, and I knew I'd made the right call. The police cars pulled up without sirens, which somehow made their arrival even more ominous. 2 patrol cars followed by an unmarked sedan. Officers emerged, and I recognized the body language of people preparing for a potentially dangerous situation. They conferred briefly on the sidewalk, then approached Daniel's door in formation. I couldn't hear what was said, but I saw Daniel open the door after the officers knocked. They spoke to him for several minutes, and I could see Daniel shaking his head, gesturing. Then one of the officers said something, and Daniel's shoulders slumped. He stepped aside, and the officers entered his house. More vehicles arrived, another patrol car, then a van with forensics written on the side. The quiet street that had been my home for 8 years was suddenly the center of intense law enforcement activity. Neighbors emerged from their houses, gathering in small clusters on the sidewalk, speculation running wild. I stayed inside, unable to face their questions, knowing that I was the reason this was happening. 45 minutes later, officers emerged from the house with Daniel in handcuffs. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, no longer the mysterious figure who had commanded my attention and fear, just a man, defeated and resigned, being guided into the back of a patrol car. The next morning, a detective knocked on my door. Detective Sarah Chen, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She asked if she could come in, and I led her to my living room, my stomach churning with anxiety about what I was about to learn. "I wanted to thank you personally for making that call," she began. "What we found in that house, you may have saved lives." She proceeded to tell me what they'd discovered. Daniel Morrison had been running an operation from his home, but it wasn't drugs or stolen goods as I'd half expected. It was human trafficking. The basement had been converted into a makeshift holding area, a way station for people being transported across the country. The packages I'd seen contained not contraband but supplies, food, basic medical items, clothing. The visitors were couriers and buyers. The young woman I'd seen running had been one of several people held in that basement over the past 6 months. She'd managed to escape during a moment when Daniel had been distracted, and her testimony, combined with what they'd found in the house, would ensure Daniel faced serious prison time. "Was he working alone?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Detective Chen shook her head. "He was part of a larger network. We've already made several other arrests based on evidence from his computer. This goes much deeper than one house in one neighborhood." As she left, she turned back one more time. "You did the right thing. It takes courage to speak up, especially when you're not entirely sure what you're seeing. A lot of people would have looked the other way." The day the police knocked on my neighbor's door changed everything, not just for Daniel Morrison, whose carefully constructed double life came crashing down, but for me and for everyone on our quiet suburban street. We learned that horror doesn't always announce itself with obvious signs. Sometimes it hides behind closed curtains and polite smiles, in basements and behind locked doors, in neighborhoods that pride themselves on being safe. I've thought a lot about the months I spent observing and suspecting, but not acting. The guilt of not calling sooner weighs on me, even though Detective Chen assured me that I couldn't have known for certain what was happening. That suspicion alone wasn't enough until I saw that woman fleeing. But I wonder about the other victims, the ones who passed through that basement before I finally picked up the phone. Could I have saved them too if I'd trusted my instincts earlier? The house next door stands empty now, a for sale sign in the yard. No one wants to buy the house where such terrible things happened, and I don't blame them. I can't look at it without feeling a chill, without remembering those late-night visitors and muffled sounds. The neighborhood has changed too. We eye each other differently now, wondering what other secrets might be hidden behind our facades of normalcy. But there's also been something positive that emerged from this tragedy. We talk to each other more now. We pay attention. We've learned that being a good neighbor means more than keeping your lawn neat and waving when you pass each other. It means caring enough to notice when something is wrong and having the courage to act on that knowledge. The question that haunted me through those months, what is my responsibility when I suspect something terrible, has been answered, at least for me. The responsibility is to speak up, to risk being wrong, to endure the discomfort of uncertainty rather than allowing potential harm to continue. The social contract we have with each other as human beings demands that much. I still drink my coffee by the kitchen window each morning, but I see the street differently now. I notice things I used to ignore, a car that lingers too long, lights on at unusual hours, changes in patterns and behaviors. Not because I want to be suspicious of everyone, But because I understand now that vigilance is the price of safety, that looking away is a choice with consequences. Daniel Morrison is in prison now, facing decades behind bars. The network he was part of has been dismantled, and according to Detective Chen, several other victims have been identified and are receiving help. The woman I saw running that night is safe, recovering with the support of victim services. These are the tangible outcomes of one phone call, one decision to trust that something I saw mattered. I think about Daniel sometimes, trying to understand how someone becomes capable of such cruelty. Was he always like this? Or did he change gradually, compromise by compromise, until he'd crossed lines he never thought he would? I'll never know. What I do know is that monsters aren't always obvious. They don't always look like villains. Sometimes they look like anyone else, like the quiet neighbor who kept to himself and never caused any trouble. The day the police knocked on my neighbor's door, I already knew why. But knowing isn't enough. Acting on that knowledge, despite fear and uncertainty, despite the comfort of looking away, that's what makes the difference between being aware and being responsible. It's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life, and one I hope I never have the chance to use again. Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to say something really important. To everyone who's been following this channel from the beginning, thank you. Seriously, you have no idea how much your support means to me. Every view, every like, every comment you leave, it's what keeps me going and motivates me to bring you these stories week after week. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm genuinely so glad this story brought you to our community. This channel is all about exploring real-life mysteries, moral dilemmas, and the extraordinary situations that happen to ordinary people. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think, or if you just want to see more content like this, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. It's free. It takes literally 1 second, and it helps this channel grow more than you could imagine. And don't forget to turn on that notification bell so you never miss when I drop a new story. Trust me, what's coming next? You won't want to miss it. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever witnessed something suspicious in your neighborhood? What would you have done in this situation? I read every single comment, and I genuinely love hearing your thoughts and perspectives. Thank you again for being here. Whether you've been subscribed for years or you just clicked that button right now, you're part of this community, and I appreciate you more than words can express. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay curious, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the most incredible stories are happening right next door.